All right. Welcome to Engearment.com. My name is Clay Farnsley, senior writer. I'm here with Mike Hebert from Jetboil, and we're going to talk about some new ignition technology that they have coming out here in 2025. I want to talk to Mike today about that, but before we get into that, we want to kind of get a little bit of history about Mike, or at least learn who he is, so that you know his bona fides. And Mike, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you became head engineer at JetBoil?
Yeah, sure. So mechanical engineer, and I got my master's degree at University of Rhode Island, the little tiny state where I grew up. Um, I came up to New Hampshire after school and mostly worked in the defense industry for a while, actually. And it was kind of interesting because sort of doing like high power RF components and dealing with some similar stuff that ended up transferring over here. There's a lot of thermal management. So we're trying to figure out what to do with heat, how to get heat kind of dissipated and pulled away and away from, touch points and things like that. So, that was pretty interesting. And then, I saw job posting at Jetboil, which is kind of local to where I was living at the time. And it's like, well, that's fantastic. So was fortunate to get a job there, and 12 years ago now. So I started as a senior design engineer. We're a pretty small team at the time. It was really just a team of three. So we kind of started developing more products and larger format things, the team kind of continued to grow. And I ended up taking over, management of the design team. So I did that for, I don't know, probably 5 years or so. And then a couple of years ago, they relocated the Jetboil R&D crew from Southern New Hampshire in Manchester up to Old Town, Maine, which is where one of our, I guess, like cousin brands from Johnson Outdoors, Old Town Canoes and Kayaks. They have a similar size development team there, and we recognize that as they're both growing, we can share resources and stuff like that. So the crew moved up there, and unfortunately, I couldn't make the move. So there's a new director kind of taking over the management responsibilities for all the team, and then my new role is principal engineer. I'm basically responsible for working on all the new concepts and new technologies that we'll be, putting into products, and then kind of overseeing that into the design and working with the design and engineering team up there. So I
Okay.
guess that's kind of my story and background and
Yeah,
my so
that kind of answered my second question too. So I appreciate your brevity there. So for those folks who might be new to the brand, and I can't imagine there's a whole lot, but we'll go ahead and ask the question anyways. What makes Jetboil like sort of stand out to the outdoor cooking space?
um well the two things that really kind of made Jetboil stand out, like very initially, we're kind of pioneers of the concept of this cooking system where everything nests and packs together, and it's like a really efficient use of space in your pack, and then sets up together and kind of like it's locking and coordinated. And then the other piece of it was attaching a heat exchanger, our flux ring, to a cook pot. And that, essentially you're using half the fuel and you're boiling water twice as fast compared to, like most of the solutions out there. So those two things just resonated with backpackers like right away. Um, and then I think the other thing that really over time has, continued to work for people is um, the product's very approachable and easy to use. It's not overly complicated or technical or kind of scary. We've got this nice cozy, and there's, you know, touch points where you feel comfortable and confident kind of engaging with the product. And I think that's really also set Jetboil apart from other brands over time too.
Right. Well, let's kind of talk about what this new system is. What are you all officially calling it?
So we're the new products are going to be Flash and Zip, which are basically our flagship system, and I guess it's little brother. So uh, this new one will be Flash 1.0 liter. That's kind of how it's going to be differentiated, and you can see that marking on the product there. It'll say, yep, yeah, you see Flash 1.0 liter. Um, so it's basically, it's a rehash or a re-envisioning of the fast boil product line that we make. That's those two products.
What inspired this innovation to change the ignition?
So a lot of it was, we've seen larger format cooking products that have just a much simpler interface. You turn the knob and it ignites, and you know where you are, and it's just like that works great. And you don't typically see that on like these backpacking type products. So we kind of recognized that like these separate features are, a little tough to coordinate. And we didn't hear people really saying a lot like, oh, this is really hard and challenging. But when you observe and you watch, you can see people trying to, it's like sequential and coordinating and how many times do I open the valve and that kind of thing. And it was just like, boy, this just could be so much easier if we can like find a way to minimize this just turn click functionality and fit it into a backpacking stove. So that kind of inspired us to try and solve that.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny how you don't like think about because I mean you don't hear a lot of bad things about Jetboil. Like I'm a long time Jetboil user, and I've never been like, you know, outwardly frustrated by it. I just use it. It's always works for me, and I always go for it. And it's always been something I'm like delighted with. Um, so when you talk about innovation, you're just like, oh yeah, I guess that is something that could be better. Like that's great.
Well, you can learn a lot from what people tell you, but you can learn a lot just from watching folks as
Yeah,
well.
that's great.
What they're not saying. Yeah.
So like really obviously reliability is key. Like what kind of testing did the ignition system go through
Yeah.
to ensure it kind of holds up when we're all out there? I mean, that's a big part of outdoor recreation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our testing's kind of split into two parts, and there's just a ton of lab testing. We have a super rigorous program. And it through all the paces of cycling and thermal cycling and kind of extreme use cases that it might see. So it goes through a full regimen there, but then we rely a lot on field testing. So we have a pretty robust field testing process and like user base that we utilize. And we get it out there and make sure that we've got it in kind of like all the climates and altitudes and conditions and everything that we expect folks to be using it. And we, just make sure we get that out there. Of course, we always find a few things, and we make sure that we've got the time built in there so that we can make the final tweaks and go back out and confirm that we've addressed things appropriately and got the fixes in there.
Were there any like specific challenges you all faced while developing this?
Well, yeah, so the ignition system in particular was definitely a challenge design wise. Kind of like I said, there's larger format products that have a similar interface. What they have going for them is space. So you have a
Yeah.
big knob and an igniter behind it, and you turn it and it just pushes on it. It's like great. Well, on a little backpacking stove, we don't have the real estate. So we have to pack our igniter kind of away in actually like what's in a pretty terrible location, and then you're turning a knob over here. So we had to like find a way to turn this rotation into a linear actuation somewhere else. Um, so it was a pretty fun little challenge. Our first kind of like attempts at it were a little overcomplicated and not going to work out too well. But eventually we got it, and I think credit to the awesome R&D team, because there's just we have a lot of good minds and people looking at it and kind of suggesting improvements along the way. And I definitely can't take all the credit on the final solution. Then of course you land on it and it just looks and seems very obvious that did at first, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when Katie told me about it. When was that? Like last spring, I think. And when it came to my mind, I was like, oh, it's like a gas stove that I had at my house, and I love gas stoves
Yep.
because of the accuracy that you can cook with. And when I finally got it in my hands, and what I really like about it is that when the ignition goes on, it's full flame.
Yep. Yep.
You immediately it's on, and it's not like when you're igniting it, you have like a little flame, and you're like, is it on? And so this
Yep.
is full flame, and it's on immediately. It burns off any excess. So I really liked that feature of it. But yeah, it's like a gas stove at your house. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
oh,
it's a much more comfortable interface. And most backpacking stoves, the valves to are multi-rotation, right? And you don't know where you are. And that's
yeah,
something we hear about. You
yeah,
you know how to get more or less gas, but you don't necessarily have an idea of where you are. And
yeah,
by going to less than one rotation, like we can mark exactly where the ignition is, you just move and go there. But then also here's high, here's low, and you can kind of target where you want to go with,
exactly.
depend. Yep.
Yeah. So big fan of that. Um, What what does that R&D process look like for y'all? And you don't have to like explain or give away, big secrets, obviously, but like
Yep.
what
Yep.
does it look like? What do you use like a lot of customer feedback, or obviously you do a lot of observation?
Yep. Yeah. We do a lot of that. We have a lot of obviously passionate people with big ideas. So that kind of comes in from one side, and then from the other side, we have a brand team just super focused on consumer insights and feedback. And we have other funnels for this stuff too, through customer service and quality, and kind of all comes in. And we're constantly churning up ideas for products or features. And the we have more ideas than we have like resources to execute and everything. So the process is basically like a whittling down, kind of staged out process of like getting approvals to put more resources and effort and time on the things that are most exciting, um, and going to make the most impact. We work very closely with the brand team like early on, and that way we can make sure that we're kind of getting like the ideas that have like the best kind of appetite and excitement with the consumer and are resonating with them, are the ones that are proceeding forward. And then um, eventually we get to have all of our fun and start building and testing and prototyping. All that type of stuff is really what we get excited about.
Did you have any like unexpected lessons or surprising things happen while working on this new technology?
Yeah, there's always lessons and surprises. And I think you have to expect that you're going to learn something unexpected at some point. Like that's just part of the process. And I think um we get questions sometimes about like, well, you're going to test that for that long, but that's why we do. And that's why our test process is so rigorous, and our field testing is so rigorous, is that we need to kind of find out all these small things and make sure that we've addressed them before we hit the market.
Yeah. And obviously you personally test these things out. Did you have anything memorable that you've gone through or that you've had happen to you that's happened while putting it through the ringer?
um you know I've I've been using this stuff on the weekends. I spend all I have free time outside doing something, camping, or backpacking, hiking, biking, skiing in the winter, um, whatever I can. So I always have something with me so I can, be doing a little work while I'm out in the field too, with the benefit of hot food and coffee, which is great. So, yeah, I'm using stuff a lot. Had a lot of pretty interesting stories. Nothing, I think probably the most interesting thing that has happened was we had a I was on a backcountry ski trip in Vermont, and we were just out in the middle of nowhere. There was a ton of snow that had just fallen, and it was just super, super fine. And the temperature plummeted, and we were kind of like out in this gully, and people's skin started popping off. There's just snow kind of got stuck between somewhere between the skin and the ski, and it just kept working its way in. And there were a couple people had their skins pop off. And like, oh my God, this is going to be a long day. We got to get out of here.
No.
Well, turns out we had a jet boil and started melting snow and just ran it as a steamer. And we set up this kind of like human conveyor system to steam the skins and quickly dry them to clear them off of all the stuff that was frozen and stuck to them and dry the glue.
That's so
And like, of course, carefully, like making sure they didn't touch any more snow while they're going through. So it's a very careful process, but we like Jetboil saved the day and we got everybody back and skinned out. And
wow.
they were like, well, thank God we had that stove.
That's so cool though. I mean, I love like I'm never shocked by the amount of ingenuity that people, especially in the backcountry, that people come up with. But that's definitely a new one for me. So I love that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a new product though, by the way. Like I'm sure
Right.
like
Yep. You go
skin,
backcountry skiing, make sure
that
it's a
jet boil
Jetboil.
skin steamer.
Yep.
What do you think? What excites you the most about Jetboil or like the future of Jetboil? Besides this,
Um,
obviously this is
yeah.
a super exciting. I think this could really propel things.
Yeah. I mean, uh, I think, you know, Jetboil's always kind of stood by the fast, compact, efficient mentality. And, you know, that can mean a lot of stuff. And, you know, that kind of sparked us to, you know, do the Genesis design, which is awesome and well received. And, you know, that's exciting to think about, you know, where things like that can go. But, you know, I can't go too much into, you know, what kind of programs we might be working on here, but they are exciting. I think the other really exciting thing though, you know, I mentioned like the co-location. We have a new R&D facility up with the Old Town crew, and it's actually it's great. I love going up there. I'm up there pretty frequently, and you know, there's just all these incredible minds together and working on kind of different things, but the collaboration and crossover is really cool, and there's just a lot of passionate, enthusiastic people. So just in addition to having like extra resources and tools, there's just like all these ideas and solutions being thrown around. So that's exciting for, you know, what we've got coming up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, One last, we'll kind of end things on a fun question. What's your go-to food that you always love to have on trail that you cook in your jet boil?
Um,
It could be coffee, tea.
yeah, I mean, there's always coffee involved without a doubt. And you know, I guess like if I'm hiking or backpacking, I'm usually trying to keep things pretty light and simple. I don't know if I have a go-to besides there's like the coffee staple for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not as creative. There's some people doing some incredible stuff out there. I know I get curious and try this or that, but I in the realm of camping, um, if I go camping with my kids and I didn't make camping donuts, I there would be like a mutiny on my hands. So that is like a
Nice.
absolute staple for any camping trip I go on. The
Huh.
fire, pull out the Genesis, and I don't know if you've done this, but you just it's basically you take like the Pillsbury rolls and you use like the cap from the oil or whatever to kind of knock out the center, and then you've got donuts and donut holes, and you fry them up in the pot and throw them in a bag with cinnamon and sugar, toss them up, and you got bacon in the skillet on the other burner, and of course your coffee going next to it. And it's like this is the best way to start a day outside.
Well, I haven't done that, but I plan on doing it now. I have a half gin and then I have the this guy. So personally, I have to have coffee within 30 seconds of waking up. And so luckily I can do that. So
Yeah, we got you covered there.
yeah, absolutely covered. And thankfully it's within my 30-second timeline. But donuts is wow, that's a game changer. So huge.
Yeah, the
Never.
camp donuts.
I've
Yeah,
seen the
we're
people with there's like that. It's like you can make like hot pockets. You have,
okay.
but like, same thing. It's like you put a biscuit.
It's like a two-sided waffle iron kind of
Yeah,
thing, right? Yeah,
exactly
yeah, yeah.
that.
Yep.
I love those. That's usually like a more for the fire.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
not seen donuts before, but that is absolutely gone on the list. So
Yep. Yeah, if we're packing up, the kids make sure that I've got everything we need for the camp donuts. So
I love it. I love it. I'm sure
yeah,
our listeners will definitely enjoy that. So.
yep.
Well, cool. I appreciate you talking to me today. I'm going to field test this a little bit more, and then once we'll get that review out there too, and
Awesome.
get this out to the world and share this. But I'm super excited that this is coming, and I definitely know that our the engearment crowd will absolutely be excited to talk about this.
Awesome. Yep. Yeah. Well, we're excited. Can't wait for people to have it in their hands. So.
It's going to be a game changer.
Yep.